The Chicago skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the tech startup's open-plan office, where Jessica Harper, 32, clicked through her project dashboard with practiced ease. As a project manager, she thrived on deadlines, her sharp mind juggling client demands and team schedules. Her colleagues admired her knack for defusing tension with a quick smile or a well-timed quip. Today, though, her focus wavered. Her phone buzzed on the desk, a message from Ryan flashing across the screen. Lunch later? Got a wild idea for the fourth quarter pitch. She hesitated, then typed a quick sure, 1 o'clock. Across town, Matt Harper, 34, a software engineer with a steady hand and a quieter presence, was debugging code in his company's sleek River North office. He glanced at a photo on his desk. Him and Jessica, arms around each other, laughing on a Lake Michigan hike last summer. Their 5-year marriage felt like a well-written program. Reliable, efficient, built on mutual trust. They split bills, planned weekend getaways, and volunteered together at a local animal shelter. Just last weekend, they'd spent an afternoon washing rescue dogs, Jessica's laughter echoing as a soggy pup shook water all over her. Matt grinned at the memory, then frowned. Lately, she'd been distant, dodging his questions about their future with vague excuses about work. Back at the startup, Jessica grabbed her coffee mug and headed to the break room. Ryan, 30, leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. His easy charm and quick wit had made him a favorite on the team. "You look stressed," he said, glancing up. "Big client breathing down your neck again?" Jessica sighed, pouring coffee. "Always. Plus, Matt keeps bringing up kids. I'm not ready to trade late-night pitches for diaper duty." Ryan nodded, no judgment in his eyes. "You're killing it here. Why rush?" His words landed softly, easing the knot in her chest. They chatted about the upcoming pitch, his ideas sparking her own. As they returned to their desks, their shoulders brushed, and Jessica felt a flicker of something she couldn't name. That evening, Matt cooked dinner in their Lincoln Park condo, the smell of garlic and basil filling the air. Jessica walked in, dropping her bag by the door. "Smells amazing," she said, forcing a smile. Matt plated the pasta, his eyes searching hers. "Rough day?" he asked. "Just the usual chaos," she replied, avoiding his gaze. She picked at her food, her mind replaying Ryan's comment. Matt talked about a new project at work, but her responses were clipped. When he mentioned a family camping trip they'd planned, she tensed. "Can we talk about that later?" "I'm swamped," she said, pushing her plate away. Matt's jaw tightened, but he nodded, clearing the table in silence. The next morning, Jessica arrived early at the office. Ryan was already there, sketching ideas on a whiteboard. "You're here at dawn?" she teased, grabbing a marker to join him. Their hands moved in sync, ideas flowing as they mapped out the pitch. When their fingers brushed over the marker, Ryan's grin lingered a second too long. Jessica's pulse quickened, but she shook it off, diving back into the work. Over the next week, their coffee breaks became a ritual. Ryan listened as Jessica vented about her workload and the pressure from Matt's family to settle down. "They act like I'm failing if I don't have a kid by 35, she said one day, stirring her latte. Ryan leaned closer, his voice low. "You're more than a timeline, Jess. You're building something real here." His words felt like a lifeline, pulling her from the weight of expectations. Matt, meanwhile, sensed the growing distance. He planned a surprise for their anniversary, a dinner at their favorite rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. He texted Jessica, "Clear your schedule for Friday. Got something special." She replied with a heart emoji, but her stomach twisted. Ryan had just invited her to a team happy hour that same night. She told herself it was just work, but the pull toward Ryan was growing harder to ignore. Friday arrived, and Jessica sat at her desk, staring at Ryan's latest message. "Happy hour's gonna be epic. You in?" She typed a quick, "Maybe, got plans with Matt." But as she hit send, Ryan appeared at her desk, holding 2 coffees. "For the road," he said, winking. Their fingers brushed again as she took the cup, and this time, she didn't pull away. The air between them crackled, unspoken but undeniable. That evening, Matt waited at the restaurant, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. He'd reserved a corner table, their spot from early dating days. Jessica arrived, her smile tight. "This is sweet," she said, sitting across from him. Matt reached for her hand, his voice warm. 5 years, Jess. We built something good. I was thinking, maybe it's time we talk about what's next. A family, maybe?" Jessica froze, her phone buzzing in her purse. She glanced at it instinctively. A message from Ryan. Missed you at happy hour. You okay? Matt's eyes followed her glance, his smile fading. Everything all right? He asked, his voice steady but sharp. Jessica nodded too quickly, slipping the phone face down. Just work, she said, but the lie hung heavy between them, a crack in their perfect facade widening by the second that Jessica's fingers hovered over her phone, Ryan's message glowing on the screen. Missed you at happy hour. You okay? She sat across from Matt at the rooftop restaurant, his words about starting a family still echoing. The Chicago skyline sparkled below, but the air between them felt heavy. Matt's eyes narrowed as he noticed her distraction. Work again? He asked, his voice low but edged with suspicion. Jessica shoved the phone into her purse, forcing a smile. Just a project thing. Let's focus on us. Matt nodded, but his hand tightened around his glass. The next morning, Jessica woke early, her mind racing. Matt was already gone, leaving a note about an early meeting. She felt a pang of relief, but also guilt. At the office, Ryan caught her eye from across the room, flashing a grin as he held up a coffee cup. Saved you one, he called, striding over. They dove into work, brainstorming for the fourth quarter pitch. Their ideas clicked, but so did their glances, quick, charged, dangerous. When Ryan suggested grabbing lunch to keep the momentum, Jessica agreed, ignoring the warning in her gut. At a bustling deli near the office, they sat shoulder to shoulder, sketching ideas on napkins. Ryan leaned in, his voice soft. You seem off, Jess. Everything good at home? Jessica hesitated, then spilled her fears. Matt's push for kids, her dread of losing her freedom, the suffocating pressure from his family. Ryan listened, his eyes steady. You're not just someone's wife or future mom. You're you. Don't let anyone box you in. His hand brushed hers on the table, lingering a moment too long. Jessica's heart raced, but she didn't pull away. Over the next few days, their connection deepened. Coffee breaks turned into late-night work sessions. Texts became flirty, and Jessica found herself craving Ryan's attention. He made her feel seen, not as Matt's wife or a potential mother, but as herself. One evening, as they finalized the presentation, a storm rolled in, rain lashing the office windows. The building was nearly empty, the hum of computers the only sound. Ryan stood close, pointing at her laptop screen. This slide's killer, he said, his breath warm on her neck. Jessica turned, their faces inches apart. Before she could think, his lips met hers, a quick, electric kiss that stole her breath. She pulled back, eyes wide. Ryan, we can't. Her voice trembled, but her body didn't move. Ryan stepped closer, his gaze intense. I know, but you feel it too, don't you? Jessica's mind screamed to leave, but her feet stayed rooted. The kiss deepened, a reckless moment that ended as quickly as it began. Ryan stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Jessica shook her head, grabbing her bag. This didn't happen, she said, her voice barely a whisper, and bolted for the elevator. At home, Jessica avoided Matt's eyes as he scrolled through his tablet, talking about a new hiking trail. She mumbled about a long day and escaped to the shower, letting the water drown out her racing thoughts. The kiss replayed in her mind. Wrong, thrilling, dangerous. She told herself it was a mistake, a one-time slip. But when Ryan texted later, "You okay?" "I messed up." She didn't delete it. Instead, she replied, "We're good. Just work tomorrow." The lie felt easier than facing the truth. Matt, meanwhile, sensed the shift. Jessica's late nights at work were piling up, her excuses flimsier. He tried to bridge the gap, suggesting a weekend getaway, but she brushed it off, citing deadlines. One night, as they washed dishes together, he asked, "Jess, are we okay?" His voice was calm, but his eyes searched hers. She froze, sponge in hand. "Of course," she said, too quickly. Matt's jaw clenched, but he didn't push. Instead, he planned their anniversary dinner, determined to reclaim what they'd lost. The following week, Jessica and Ryan kept their distance at work, but the tension simmered. During a team meeting, their eyes met, and Jessica's cheeks flushed. She buried herself in her laptop, but her focus was shot. Ryan's presence pulled at her, a dangerous magnet. When he asked her to stay late to polish the pitch, she agreed, telling herself it was just work. But as they worked side by side, the air grew thick. "You've been quiet," Ryan said, closing his laptop. "Regretting the other night?" Jessica swallowed hard. It was a mistake. I'm married. Ryan nodded, but his eyes held hers. I get it, but I'm here if you need to talk. His words were a lifeline she didn't want to grab. That night, Matt surprised Jessica with a home-cooked dinner, candles flickering on the table. He raised a glass, his smile warm. To us, Jess. 5 years and counting. Jessica's stomach twisted, Ryan's kiss flashing in her mind. She clinked her glass, forcing a laugh, but her hand shook. When Matt reached for her, she flinched, covering it with a cough. His brow furrowed. You sure you're okay? He asked. Jessica nodded, but her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another message from Ryan. She ignored it, but Matt's gaze lingered, suspicion growing like a storm on the horizon. Jessica's heart pounded as she sat across from Matt at the rooftop restaurant, the Chicago skyline a distant blur. His toast to their 5-year marriage hung in the air, but her phone buzzed again in her purse. Ryan's message. Missed you at happy hour. You okay? Matt's eyes flicked to her purse, his smile fading. Work again, he asked, his voice steady but sharp. Jessica's fingers twitched, caught off guard. Just a notification, she mumbled, sliding the phone face down. Matt leaned back, studying her, the warmth in his eyes cooling. The rest of the dinner passed in strained small talk. Matt tried to steer the conversation to their future. A house, maybe kids, but Jessica deflected, citing her looming project deadlines. When they left the restaurant, Matt's hand hovered near hers but didn't take it. In the car, silence replaced their usual banter. Jessica stared out the window, Ryan's kiss burning in her memory. She told herself it was a one-time mistake, but the guilt gnawed harder with every glance at Matt's tense profile. The next morning, Jessica buried herself in work, avoiding Ryan's desk. He caught her in the break room, his tone casual but probing. You ghosted me last night. Everything cool? Jessica forced a nod. Just busy. Let's keep it professional. Okay. Ryan raised his hands, backing off, but his lingering glance unsettled her. She dove into emails, trying to outrun the memory of their kiss, but her focus splintered. Meanwhile, Matt's suspicion grew. He noticed Jessica's phone lighting up more often, her excuses piling up. At his office, he stared at his code, unable to concentrate, replaying her distracted behavior at dinner. That evening, Jessica stayed late at the startup, claiming a tight deadline. Matt, restless, decided to surprise her with takeout from their favorite Thai spot. He arrived at her office building, the lobby dim and quiet. As he rode the elevator, his phone pinged, a group chat with mutual friends planning a weekend hike. He texted Jessica, brought dinner. You free? No reply. He stepped onto her floor, the office mostly empty, save for the glow of her desk lamp. Jessica and Ryan were hunched over a laptop, their voices low, debating a slide. Matt paused in the doorway, takeout bag in hand. Ryan's hand brushed Jessica's arm, a casual gesture, but Matt's jaw tightened. Jessica looked up, startled, her eyes widening at the sight of Matt. Hey, you didn't say you were coming, she said, her voice too bright. Ryan stood, offering a polite nod. Just wrapping up, he said, but Matt's gaze locked on Jessica, searching for answers she wasn't giving. Back home, the takeout sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Matt crossed his arms, his voice calm but firm. What's going on, Jess? You're barely here, even when you're with me. Jessica's stomach dropped. She opened her mouth to deflect, but Matt cut in. Don't say work. It's more than that. Her silence stretched, heavy with guilt. Finally, she sank onto the couch, her voice barely audible. I messed up, Matt. I kissed someone. At work. It was a mistake, just once, I swear. Matt's face went still, his eyes unreadable. Who? He asked, his tone flat. Jessica hesitated, her throat tight. Someone from the team. It doesn't matter. It's over. Matt's hand clenched into a fist, then relaxed. It matters to me. He grabbed his keys and walked out, the door clicking shut behind him. Jessica sat frozen, her confession echoing in the empty condo, the weight of her words crashing down. The next day, Matt didn't come home. He texted, staying at a hotel. Need time. Jessica's calls went unanswered, her texts unread. At work, she avoided Ryan, but he cornered her in the hallway. You told him? He asked, his voice low. Jessica nodded, her eyes on the floor. Stay away from me, Ryan. This can't happen again. He stepped closer, his tone soft. I didn't mean to mess things up. I care about you. Jessica shook her head, brushing past him, her heart a tangle of regret and resolve. Matt, meanwhile, sat in a hotel coffee shop, his laptop open. He wasn't impulsive, but he wasn't passive either. He started digging, checking Jessica's recent messages in their shared cloud account, something he'd never done before. A string of texts with Ryan appeared, flirty and familiar, stretching back weeks. Matt's chest tightened, but he stayed calm, methodical. He screenshot the messages, then searched the company's public directory, finding Ryan's profile. A plan formed, sharp and deliberate. By the end of the week, Jessica returned home to find a note on the counter. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Her hand shook as she read it, dread pooling in her stomach. She tried calling Matt again, but it went to voicemail. At work, Ryan kept his distance, but the office buzzed with whispers. Colleagues noticed her distraction, her red-rimmed eyes. Jessica threw herself into her project, but every keystroke felt hollow, the impending conversation with Matt looming like a storm. That night, alone in the condo, Jessica sat with her phone, scrolling through old photos of her and Matt, laughing at the animal shelter, hiking in Wisconsin, building their life together. Tears stung her eyes as she realized how far she drifted. She typed a long message to Matt, apologizing, promising to fix things, but deleted it before sending. Words wouldn't undo what she'd done. As the clock ticked closer to 7 o'clock tomorrow, the truth she tried to bury was about to explode, and nothing would be the same. Jessica sat on the couch, clutching Matt's note. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Her phone lay silent, his calls unanswered, her texts ignored. The Chicago condo felt too quiet, the hum of the city outside a stark contrast to the chaos in her mind. She'd confessed the kiss with Ryan, but Matt's icy exit and his demand for a name left her reeling. Sleep didn't come. Every creak of the floorboards made her hope he'd walk through the door. He didn't. At 7 o'clock, Matt arrived, his face unreadable. He sat across from her, hands folded, his calm unnerving. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice low. Jessica's throat tightened. She recounted the late-night work sessions, Ryan's listening ear, the kiss during the storm. "It was a mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "I stopped it. I don't want him." Matt's eyes narrowed. "Why not tell me his name?" Jessica froze, unable to say Ryan's name, fearing it would make the betrayal too real. "It's not about him," she insisted. Matt stood, grabbing his jacket. "I'm done guessing, Jess." He left again, the doors slam echoing. The next day, Jessica dragged herself to work, her eyes puffy. Ryan approached her desk, his tone cautious. "You okay? You look wrecked." She glared. "This is on us, Ryan. Stay away." He nodded, backing off, but the damage was done. Whispers rippled through the office. Colleagues noticed her distraction, her short temper. Jessica buried herself in her project, but her focus faltered, the weight of Matt's absence crushing her. Matt, meanwhile, wasn't idle. From his hotel room, he combed through the screenshots of Jessica's texts with Ryan, each flirty exchange a fresh cut. He wasn't vengeful, but he was resolute. He cross-referenced the startup's employee handbook, spotting a clause on workplace conduct. Ryan's pursuit of a married colleague could be a violation. Matt drafted an email to HR, attaching the screenshots, keeping it factual. Inappropriate behavior, potential conflict of interest. He hit send, then booked a consultation with a divorce lawyer. His moves were calculated, not cruel, aimed at protecting himself. By midweek, the fallout began. Jessica was called into HR's office. The manager, a stern woman, slid a printout of the texts across the desk. "Care to explain?" Jessica's stomach dropped. Matt had reported Ryan. She stammered, admitting the kiss, but pleading it was a one-time lapse. The manager's gaze was cold. "Ryan's been suspended pending investigation. You're on notice. Focus on your work, or you're next." Jessica left, her face burning, the office's eyes on her as she returned to her desk. That evening, she found another note at home. Matt had moved out, leaving only his key on the counter. She raced to their shared closet. His clothes were gone, his laptop missing. Panic set in. She called him, texting apologies, begging to talk, but he didn't respond. Social media buzzed as mutual friends noticed his absence, some texting Jessica with concern, others siding with Matt. Her best friend, Sarah, called blunt. "You screwed up, Jess. Fix this, or you'll lose him for good." Jessica hung up, tears falling, knowing Sarah was right. Matt met with the lawyer, a no-nonsense woman who outlined a clean divorce process. No kids, shared assets, simple split, she said. Matt nodded, his voice steady. I want it quick. No drama. He rented a small apartment in Wicker Park, unpacking only essentials. At work, he threw himself into coding, his focus razor-sharp, channeling his pain into productivity. But at night, alone, he replayed Jessica's confession, the omission of Ryan's name cutting deepest. It wasn't just the kiss. It was the secrecy, the betrayal of trust. Jessica, desperate, showed up at Matt's office, waiting in the lobby. When he emerged, he stopped, surprised but guarded. "What do you want, Jess?" he asked, his tone flat. She stepped forward, voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Matt. I was scared, confused. I'll do anything to fix this." He shook his head. "You protected him. That's what I can't forgive." He walked away, leaving her standing alone, the weight of her choices suffocating. The office became a minefield. Ryan's suspension sparked rumors, and Jessica felt the stares, the hushed conversations. She met with HR again, promising to keep work professional, but the damage to her reputation lingered. She stopped joining team lunches, her confidence shaken. One night, she called her sister, Emma, spilling everything. Emma listened, then said, "You broke his trust, Jess. Own it, and maybe you can rebuild." Jessica hung up, resolved to try, but Matt's silence loomed large. By week's end, Matt emailed Jessica, formal and curt. "Divorce papers are coming. Sign them. We're done." Jessica stared at the message, her heart sinking. She'd lost control of the story she'd thought she could rewrite. As she sat alone, her phone buzzed, a work email confirming Ryan's termination for violating conduct policies. The consequences of her actions were closing in, and with Matt's resolve hardening, Jessica faced a future she'd never imagined. One where the life she'd built was unraveling, piece by piece. Jessica stared at Matt's email on her phone. "Divorce papers are coming. Sign them. We're done." The words burned, final and cold. Alone in their half-empty Chicago condo, she felt the life they'd built slipping away. Her affair with Ryan, a fleeting kiss and weeks of reckless texts, had cost her everything. The office fallout didn't help. Ryan's termination for violating workplace conduct left her reputation in tatters, colleagues whispering as she passed. She tried apologizing to Matt, but his silence was absolute. Now, with divorce looming, Jessica faced the wreckage of her choices. Determined to take responsibility, Jessica booked a therapy session. Sitting across from the counselor, she unpacked her fears, losing her identity to motherhood, the pressure of Matt's family, the allure of Ryan's attention. "I wasn't running to him," she said, voice shaking. "I was running for myself." The therapist nodded, pushing her to confront her avoidance. Jessica left with a plan. Focus on growth, not excuses. She started volunteering more at the animal shelter where she and Matt once worked together, finding solace in caring for rescue dogs. The routine grounded her, a small step toward rebuilding. Matt, meanwhile, settled into his new Wicker Park apartment. He threw himself into his coding projects, his precision masking the ache of betrayal. At the shelter, he kept volunteering, his quiet strength winning over the staff. One afternoon, he met Emily, a veterinarian with a sharp wit and warm laugh. They bonded over a shy rescue pup, swapping stories about their work. Matt didn't push, but their chats became a highlight. Coffee breaks, quick texts, moments of ease he hadn't felt in months. When he told Emily about his divorce, she listened without judgment. "You're more than your past," she said, her words sparking something new in him. Jessica's therapy sessions peeled back layers of guilt. She wrote Matt a letter, not expecting a response. "I broke us. I was scared and selfish, but I'm working on myself. I hope you find peace." She mailed it, then focused on her job, salvaging her standing with flawless work. Colleagues noticed her effort, and the whispers faded. But social circles were less forgiving. Mutual friends drifted, some blaming her, others unsure how to navigate the split. Sarah, her best friend, stayed blunt. "You're growing, Jess, but you can't undo what's done." Weeks later, the divorce papers arrived. Jessica met Matt at the lawyer's office, a sterile room that felt like a courtroom. He sat across from her, eyes fixed on the documents, avoiding her gaze. She signed each page, her hands steady but heavy. "I'm sorry," she whispered as they stood to leave. Matt paused, then nodded, his voice low. I know, but we can't go back. He walked out, leaving Jessica with a hollow ache, the finality sinking in. Matt's life took a new shape. He and Emily grew closer, their bond built on honesty. When he introduced her to the shelter staff, they saw his old warmth return, softened by her presence. He didn't talk about Jessica, focusing instead on the present, coding, volunteering, and small adventures with Emily, like biking along Lake Michigan. He wasn't healed, but he was moving forward, his trust in himself restored. Jessica, meanwhile, leaned into her new routine. She enrolled in a project management course, sharpening her skills, and volunteered weekly at the shelter. One day, she overheard a staffer mention Matt and Emily. The sting was sharp but brief. She was learning to let go. She focused on the dogs, their trust in her a quiet reminder of resilience. One evening, as she walked a scruffy terrier under the Chicago stars, she felt a shift. She wasn't the woman who'd betrayed Matt, nor the one who'd feared losing herself. She was someone new, shaped by accountability. Months later, Jessica ran into Matt at the shelter. He was with Emily, laughing as they played with a puppy. Jessica hesitated, then approached. Hey, she said, her voice steady. Matt looked up, surprised but calm. Hey, Emily smiled politely, stepping back to give them space. I heard you're doing well, Jessica said. I am glad. Matt nodded, his guard softening. You too. Keep going, Jess. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was closure. Jessica walked away, the terrier trotting beside her, a weight lifting from her chest. The divorce finalized quietly. Matt and Emily moved in together. Their life simple but real. No grand gestures, just shared mornings and shelter shifts. Jessica kept studying, her career rebounding as she earned a promotion. She didn't date, choosing instead to rebuild trust in herself. The shelter became her anchor, each rescued dog a small victory. Both Matt and Jessica carried scars, but they'd learned the same truth. Mistakes don't define you, but owning them can. Their paths diverged, tied only by the past, but each found a way to start again.